Good morning. Welcome to the January Benefit Specialist video conference. Before we get started, I just want to give you a few reminders. Since this is a recorded broadcast, if you have any questions, please send me an IM and we will try to get those answered for you as we are moving along. Also, if you do need to pause the broadcast for any reason, you can pick up and it'll start back up right where you left off so that you don't miss anything. A policy reminder that I wanted to give everyone is it is tax return time again. Looking at resources, please remember that all tax return amounts can be deducted resources for a period of 12 months. And that is not just bank accounts, it is all countable resources. And then you're able to come up with that net countable that you'll actually use for the case. That information can be found in Combined Manual Section 806. There's the treatment of asset table there, so take a look at that. Just a quick reminder for tax season. So this morning we do have a few of our annual trainings, customer service, we have civil rights, caseload management, and then we also have Teresa Harding here from the Child Care Subsidy Program, and she's going to do a quick presentation on the Child Care Subsidy Program for us. Just that way we have a general idea of kind of how things work and how we can refer our clients to that program if they need it. So, all right, before we get, we'll go ahead and jump in with customer service. Shared. Okay. I made a difference for that one. Customer service, when we're talking about customer service for our clients, it really is just an act of caring for everyone that walks through our door. And some of you might remember this from last year. This is a story that I heard in early childhood development, and it just really stuck with me about how every little action that we take really can make a difference for everyone that we come across. It's called the Starfish Thrower. And one day a man was walking along the beach when he noticed a boy picking something up and gently throwing it into the ocean. Approaching the boy, he asked, "What are you doing?" "Throwing starfish back into the ocean. The surf is up and the tide is going out. If I don't throw them back, they'll die." "Son," the man said, "don't you realize there are miles and miles of beach and hundreds of starfish? You can't make a difference." After listening politely, the boy bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it back into the surf. Then, smiling at the man, he said, "I made a difference for that one." I absolutely love that story. I think it just really speaks to the fact that even though we sometimes feel overwhelmed by the enormity of what it is that we have to do, every small step, every little action makes a huge difference in the lives of someone else. Every interaction matters, every single one. So how do we show we care? We start off first with a smile. That's just always that getting started off on the right foot. Give them a great big smile. Make sure that we're listening to them. We're not simply listening to respond, but we're actually listening to what it is that they're trying to relate to us. Through listening, we're able to then identify their need and empathize with their situation. That is huge with customer service, is being able to hear what it is that they're asking of us, and then also to let them know, hey, we understand. I understand. And apologize. And that doesn't always have to be an apology because you truly did something wrong in this interaction or in the previous interaction. It can simply be a, "I am so sorry that you're dealing with this." Just something, again, that lets them know that you really do empathize with them and you really do care about the situation that they're dealing with. And then make sure to let them know that you're going to do everything in your power to resolve that concern for them. Speaking of smiles, a smile is the shortest distance between two people. It's the quickest way to have a positive interaction with someone and make sure that what follows that initial smile is possible. Okay. When we talk about listening, I mentioned being an active listener, listening just to respond. So how can we truly be a great active listener? Well, first, we can focus on the customer. Key information. Listen for the little things that they're trying to tell you. And if someone is, say this is a complaint of some type and someone is upset and there's all kinds of emotion, there might be a lot of things that you kind of have to sift through to get down to what the root problem is. And so through active listening, we're able to do that, to pick out that key information and then to find out what the real cause of this is. Listen for those key feelings. It's really important to people that they understand, that they know you understand how they're feeling and that you're not dismissing their feelings and their concerns. And definitely clarify understanding. It's really great to use some of those clarification statements of, you know, so I'm understanding that this is what you expected to happen, but this is what actually happened. Is that right? And that gives them a minute to go, okay, wait, this person really is listening to me. Yes, that's what I'm trying to say. Not really. Here's what's really going on. So definitely use those clarification statements as you're dealing with that customer interaction. These are some wonderful quotes that I found when dealing with communication and listening. The most basic of all human needs is the need to understand and be understood. The best way to understand people is simply to listen to them. I think that that's something that we all can relate to, is feeling like we want to be understood and heard. One of the most sincere forms of respect is actually listening to what another has to say, you know, not interrupting, letting someone, you know, vent if they must and listen to what it is that they need to say. Listening is an art that requires attention over talent, spirit over ego, and others over self. It is an art. It is something that we have to work on to get better at. It's not a real natural thing for a lot of people to truly listen to someone. And especially if someone's upset and then you have emotions into that interaction as well, it takes some practice to be able to kind of push that aside and truly listen. And then I love this one, and I think anybody who has a teenager or a preteen will completely relate to this. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen to with the intent to reply. That's what we don't want to do. We're not just looking for a way to fire back. We want to really understand where the customer is coming from. All right, so how do we get to the heart of the matter? Because really, we're talking about customer service being an act of caring. There has to be heart involved in that. We empathize. That's really the first way that we can let someone know that we care about what's going on in their situation and we care about something that's happening that we maybe have the power to fix. Or if we don't have the power to fix, we can at least say, hey, I understand what you're going through. Let's see what we can do. So that's those I understand statements. I understand that you're upset. I understand that this wasn't what you thought would happen. Ways to relay that. Apologize. An apology is huge. And like I said, it does not have to be an I apologize for my wrongdoing in this. If there is something that, you know, if you did miss something on the case, you didn't, you know, something that you can own, absolutely own it. And I apologize. For I'm sorry that your wait was so long. I was on the other line. You know, I apologize that you know, as you were bringing your application in, you had to stand here for 20 minutes and now you're going to be late to pick up your kiddos from school. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an I apologize for something I've done wrong. I just apologize for the situation and I apologize for your feelings in this. That's huge. Let's see what we can do to resolve this situation. So those are the three major key points to let someone know that you truly do care. That's how we can show that heart of customer service. All right, so DFS specifics for us. How do we, things that we really want to see happen here at DFS when it comes to customer service, for excellence with our customer service? We make sure that we're returning phone calls and emails within 24 hours, preferably the same day. We inform the customer of what to expect. Letting someone know what to expect is really the first way to kind of head off a customer service issue where there might be a complaint. If you let them know right off the bat, when you bring your verifications into me, it can take up to 10 days to get that processed. So then maybe they're not expecting, okay, the very next day I'll have benefits on my card. You might still have some people who are like, I really, really need this. Is there any way to get it done faster? But you've at least given them an outline of what to expect. And so that prevents misunderstood expectations from causing a customer service issue. And do your best to process applications and changes quickly and accurately. Continuing on with that, we always want to give the benefit of the doubt. That's huge. We all have bad days. Everyone has a bad day. If someone is upset, we're all human. So give the benefit of the doubt and always try to take a rough situation and turn it into a great situation by showing those caring feelings and statements. You can always refer clients to other community services as well. If there is a need in their situation that we maybe don't have a program that can help resolve, fix that need, make sure that you're fully aware of what there is available in your community and the contact information, and that way you can refer them to other community services that might be able to help. That's a huge way to build a very positive customer relation with that individual. And then always look at mistakes as opportunities for improvement. We all make mistakes, every single one of us. And so, rather than, get upset about it, it's just an opportunity for improvement. It's a way to learn. For me, that is probably the best way that I learn. If I make a mistake doing something, you can bet I'm going to do my best not to do that one again. So kind of always keep that growth mindset. Speaking of growth mindset, comfort ends. I love that statement. It is one of my mantras in so many things, in my personal life, in my professional life. When I am, working out, trying to hit a new goal, comfort ends. When the going starts to get tough, I tell myself that, and then I can make it through and I can hit another 5 minutes of running. Or, when I'm kind of stressed out about work and parenthood and all of that stuff, and I feel like I just might not be able to, growth begins where comfort ends, and before I know it, I'm getting it done. So that's an important mindset for us as well. All right, and I love this. Success is not final, fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Have mistakes happen. Keep pushing on, keep trying to get better. And customer service really is, it's a team affair. It's not the responsibility of one person in the office, not the responsibility of one person during only certain interactions. It's a team effort. So this I loved, and it really reminded me of our team here in Lander. We do teamwork. We do help. We do respect, punctuality, and laughter. We do friendship. We do coffee. We do lots of coffee in this office. We do cake. We communicate and listen. We do motivation. If one of us needs a little help, someone else is there to give them a boost to help them out. So just keep that in mind. Remember that you have an entire team around you in your office, and that you guys can all rely on each other. All right, make today so good that yesterday gets jealous. My daughter loved this. She thought that the side eye that yesterday is giving today was awesome. Every day is a new beginning. Take a deep breath and start again. If you have a negative interaction with someone, or again, if, you know, and I'm not saying negative interaction as in, you know, the worker has done anything wrong. As we know, everyone has a bad day. You might receive a phone call where a client with you and it's nothing that you've done at all. Just remember that we have the power to resolve that. We have the power to change our approach and turn that negative into a positive interaction. And the only difference between a good day and bad day is your attitude. All right. So that's it for customer service. I do not see any questions coming through for that. So with that, I will turn it over to Kelly Merritt, and he will be civil rights.
All right, thanks, Val. Appreciate it. I'm going to get through here fairly quickly as well. So I know just a couple of notes on some of these annual trainings that we've talked about. I know that some of you are probably in your seats thinking, hey, I've heard this before. There are certain trainings that we have to have on an annual basis, civil rights being one of those that's really important. So when you are doing this again next year, you can remember we do this on an annual basis. So if you've had this recently because you've been through the new hiring training, something like that, I have kind of cut this down just a little bit. I've just kind of taken a few of the things out that I felt like weren't necessarily that important that we all look at, but I wanted to leave in the important things. So the main things that I want to get through with you guys today are these 4 bullet points. So the first I've already talked about. It is important that all staff receive civil rights training. And then the next one is that you are able to identify a civil rights complaint if you were to receive it. We'll talk about what a civil rights complaint might entail and the different aspects of that, and then know what to do if you do get a complaint. So just the process behind that. And then overall, and this is kind of stretching through everything that we will talk about, is just understand that it is the basic right of the individual to file a complaint. So if you do get a complaint, again, please don't take that personally. It is somebody's right to file a complaint if they feel like their civil rights have been violated. And then we can do whatever we can to either rectify the situation or just make sure we follow the proper procedure if that happens. So first of all, what are civil rights? A quick definition for that is fair and equitable treatment in the workplace and with the delivery of our programs. So just as Val had mentioned in her customer service training, really civil rights, if we're following good client service or customer service, we are going to make sure that we are treating everybody fairly and everybody has equal access to our programs. And that's the main thing that we'll talk about with civil rights. Civil rights is to avoid discrimination. And there are several categories where discrimination can come into play. Those can be race, color, national origin, age, sex, disability, religion, or political beliefs. I believe you could add sexual orientation into that as well. And so it's important that no matter where a person might lie on any one of these, that we don't discriminate on any of those bases. Along with that, part of our charter as state agency is to make sure that we're tracking some of these things. So a little bit of background, as we have questions on the application, and we also track this through EPICS or JAS, it's important to know that that is required by FNS, so we do have to track those types of things. So we obtain data by race and ethnic category, and so that's why we keep that information in there. And then that information then is translated back to FNS so that they can monitor and just make sure that there isn't a segment of the population or one of those protected categories that we just talked about where people are being discriminated against. Okay, so we ask that people self-identify for any of those areas that we ask them for. So if they've marked something on the application, that is our preferred method of identification. And so some of those things that you can see on there are ethnicities such as Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic, and race. The different categories that we have tracked are American Indian or Alaskan Native, Asian, Black or African American, Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, or white. And the purpose of that is to just determine how effectively potentially eligible persons or beneficiaries are receiving programs. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Really, at us as state agency, what our job is just to make sure that information is entered correctly into the system. So as you put that information into EPICS based on what's on the application, that's the only requirement that we have. And I'm going to kind of skip through a couple of these things. If you have questions on this, and this may occur, applicants shall be assured that the information is required and used only for statistical purposes and has no effect on eligibility. So if somebody asks you, why are you asking me for my race? Why are you asking me for my ethnicity? You can let them know that it's only for statistical purposes, okay? And you are required as a caseworker to gather that information. Now, if the applicant does not consent to self-identification, which means if on the application they refuse to mark what their ethnicity is or their race, we can use visual observation and enter that information into the system. So if somebody is Caucasian and they refuse to mark that on the application, it is not a violation of their civil rights to then enter into EPICS that they are indeed white. We can do that, again, because the only reason that we are using that information is for statistical purposes. Okay. So just a couple of clarification there. A couple of other things that we just want to point out as we go through civil rights. Bilingual requirements are part of civil rights. We want to make sure that no matter what the language somebody speaks, if they are eligible for one of our programs, that they have equal access to those programs. And so there's a few methods that we've put in place to make sure that's taken care of. And on a federal level, that's also looked at as well. So if you are in a community or in a place where you have a higher population of limited English proficient clients, then there are steps that have to be taken. Now, here in Wyoming, we're the only two languages that we have our application in are English and Spanish. But please note that if you do have somebody that speaks a language other than English or Spanish, or even if it's Spanish and they come into your office and have questions, that we do have resources available. And the resource that we have is the language line. And I'm going to point that out in just a minute as well. So the language line, if you have used this in the past, you'll know that it's a pretty simple process. If you have not, please make note of this, because it is important that you know if somebody comes in and they don't speak English as their first language, or you feel like there's a language barrier, that you're able to use that. And it's as simple as picking up the phone, you dial 1-800-874-9426. It'll ask you for a 6-digit client ID. This is what actually bills back to us as a state. So you enter in our 6-digit code, and they'll bring up a language translator for whatever language you might need. A little side note on this is you will often have people that speak another language come in with their own translator. If you have a situation where somebody is asking a child in that household to translate for them, really want to encourage you to make sure that we don't use that as the primary translator, which means you would still want to get the language line on the phone and have that available so you can deal directly with the client. It certainly can avoid some awkwardness or some potential for a situation that may not just go correctly. So use that language line if you have somebody that's struggling with English or doesn't speak English as their primary language. Another part of civil rights is making sure we have equal opportunity for religious organizations. So I think it is probably self-evident based on what we've talked about, that we would not discriminate based on somebody's religious affiliation when it comes to the distribution of our programs. It's also important to know just kind of how that works for some of the other programs that we might offer. So the idea behind making sure that there are equal opportunity for religious organizations is to make sure that not only are we not discriminating, but also that there's equal opportunity for religious organizations to participate in some of our programs. Really, there's many religious organizations that have a strong crossover with either SNAP or some of the food programs that we have. In many of your communities, you're going to have local food banks that accept USDA foods, and those food banks are often housed within churches. Okay, so a couple of notes on that is we don't discriminate based on that, but please do not hesitate to refer people to those programs just because it's in a church house. That is not the intent of making sure that we are keeping an equal playing field. So the way it's phrased here, and this was actually given to us from FNS, is that we need to clarify that faith-based organizations can use space in their facilities to provide USDA-funded service without removing religious art, icons, scriptures, or other symbols. So what that means is, if you have a place that is housing a food bank and you have somebody go in, they don't have to change any of their decor or anything else. What it does mean is they can't discriminate against people from receiving the service. So if they're receiving USDA foods, for example, through the TFAP program, they must also comply with certain civil rights, which means regardless of somebody's religious affiliation or beliefs, that they could come in and have equal access to that program as a member of that organization, for example. Okay. Now, please know that in your communities, you may have private organizations as well. If you have a private food bank, privately funded food bank, or a religious organization that is giving based on donations from, the people that attend, then they can do really what they want with that. So as you use those as referrals, please make sure that you're at least somewhat aware of how that referral process works. So if you have questions on which food banks in your area or which churches are actually receiving USDA foods, you can ask those questions, whether it be to your supervisor or one of the regional managers. If you want to know more about the TFAP program, Ann Bowen is currently the one that's managing that TFAP program, and she actually also maintains a list of any food bank in your area that might be receiving USDA foods on a regular basis. Okay, and those are required. So if you do have a client that comes in and says, you know what, I tried to get food at this food bank, but they said that since I wasn't a member of their religion, I could not. If that's a private organization, really there's nothing that we can do about it, but please refer them to one of the ones that's receiving USDA foods. If you do ever receive a complaint, and we have had this a couple of times in the past, please contact Ann Bowen or one of us as well, and we can help see if there's an issue that might come about that we can alleviate. So keep that in mind. Please keep referring people to those outside resources. The next thing we'll talk about is just that we do not want to discriminate against individuals based on any disability. And this can be one of those things that I certainly would hope that we would not discriminate intentionally against somebody with a disability, but this is one of those things that we can really make steps to avoid discriminating against somebody with a disability unintentionally. So, for example, if you had somebody that needed to come in for an office interview and your office was not accessible to a wheelchair and they were wheelchair bound, you would probably need to take steps ahead of time, if possible, to arrange meeting in a conference room or somewhere else with accessibility. I know many of our offices have taken steps to make sure that we have good access, whether it be elevator, ramp, those types of things. If there's something in your office that you see that is causing limited access, please, that's a discussion that you could have with your supervisors, and then they could have with us to see if there's some other steps that need to be taken, but we want to make sure that we are not discriminating against somebody because of a disability. On that same token, please reach out if possible, and take extra steps if needed to make sure that if you have somebody that's hard of hearing, if you have somebody that has any other disability that can limit their access, that we're doing everything possible to make sure that they have fair access to our programs and equal access. Okay, so a couple of little things just to kind of finish up here. It's also important that we understand how we inform people of their civil rights, and we do this basically 4 times for every client. We put it on the application. So on your application, there should be the rights and responsibility pages that should be returned to their client. I do understand that not all clients want to keep those pages, but that should be at their discretion to remove. So please make sure that they're receiving those when they apply. Also, we need to be making sure that we go over rights and responsibilities at the time of interview. So I know that's a training that we just barely had and we talked about. So part of that is informing clients of their civil rights. So remember that needs to take place at the beginning of each interview. Also, every notice that we send out has information on their civil rights. So that notice is continually sent out to our clients. And then in each of your offices, you should have displayed an "And Justice for All" poster that is published by FNS. Okay, and we'll talk about that. And the purposes of these systems is so that potentially eligible persons can have program availability, be understanding of their rights and responsibilities, the policy of non-discrimination, and also the procedure for filing a complaint if they feel they are discriminated against. Okay, we're not going to talk about each one of those. I think they're pretty self-evident. So I think we already talked about all 4 of those. So this is a copy of the "And Justice for All" poster that I just talked about. This is actually the newer version. So if you're looking at this from the one that was sent out earlier, I think Val sent out one. This is actually the updated one. So you should have one of these in your offices. So kind of a good thing to do that tomorrow morning when you come into your office, if you haven't noticed this before, just glance around, make sure you can see that poster where it is. If you had somebody that had questions, you could refer them to that. It has some information down at the bottom. Also, if you are in a smaller office and you don't have this up, it is important that we have it. So if you're in a smaller office, maybe you're a single worker in an office and you don't have this displayed, this is required. So please get with your supervisor and see what you can do about getting one in your office. I know these were sent out to all the offices, but this is not a poster that we can take down or cover up with other community announcements or whatever may go up on your wall. So just make sure that this is displayed in your office as well. So let's talk about complaints. Always a favorite topic. If you do have a complaint, it really is important that you know the procedure and what to do with that. So a client's right is that they can file a complaint within 180 days from the act of discrimination. Okay. So if you do have somebody that has a complaint, it's been within the last 180 days, we need to make sure that we follow the correct procedure. Now, please understand that a complaint can be written, it can be verbal, or it can be anonymous. So if you get something from any one of those areas, we do need to make sure that we follow the correct procedure. And our procedure as workers is very simple. Our procedure is that if we do receive any complaint that we feel like is a civil rights violation, we should notify our supervisor immediately. Okay. The supervisor then is going to contact the state ombudsman, and between the state ombudsman will basically be the in-between between FNS and making sure that the client's needs are taken care of, and also following up with you if there's anything that needs to be done on our end. Okay. This information is also reported to at the federal level just to make sure that any complaints are handled in the correct time frame. So again, the most important thing is if you do receive a complaint or feel that you may have received a complaint, please report that to your supervisor immediately. If you want to go back and look at this, I'm not going to go through each of this. This is what the the feds are going to do at their level to make sure the complaint's taken care of. If there is a finding of non-compliance, they will let us know what we need to do to get back into compliance, and just make sure that we're taking care of our customers the way that we should. All right. So I'm going to kind of skip through most of this. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a compliance review. So some of you have experienced this, and this is a little bit different from the compliance reviews that we do on the state level. This is actually done at the federal level. So if you do have somebody that schedules a compliance review, you'll know ahead of time that this is going to happen. And most likely Andy would communicate that this was going to happen. And part of the review that they do is going to monitor to make sure that we're taking care of people's civil rights. Okay, so if they were to conduct a compliance review in your office, the things that they would look for is to make sure that eligible persons and households have equal opportunity to participate. The case records are coded by race or ethnic origin. Again, that's usually tracking that's done within our system. And offices are displaying the "And Justice for All" poster in a prominent location. So again, the ones that I've been privy to, they've had somebody sit out in the front, just observe what goes on as we do our intake process, how we would deal with clients, and also make sure that that poster was up. Okay. They would also review our non-discrimination statements, that it's included on any of our correspondence or our applications, and then just make sure that we have availability to any eligible people in our communities. Okay, and that we're also keeping those records for the appropriate amount of time, which in this case is 3 years. And then also they would go through our complaint processing and training. Okay, so making sure that we're doing this training, for example, and also that we understand what to do with the complaint. If you have questions on civil rights or our clients' rights, you can bring that up with your supervisor. You could also contact Jackie or myself if you have a real question on whether a complaint should be processed, how it should be handled. We can help you with those situations and just make sure that things are taken care of in the right way. And then finally, I think I just kind of want to add on to a little bit of what Val said. I mean, clients' rights really just comes down to good customer service. If we're treating people correctly, if we're making sure that we're thinking of others and trying to put ourselves in their shoes, we're going to make sure that we do things right ahead of time. Now, if we do everything right and we still get a complaint, please follow the correct procedure. Don't get offended by it. Just make sure that we go through the correct procedure, and we'll go through the follow-up process to make sure that that particular case is treated correctly. Okay. So really, that's all I have for you guys. Appreciate you sitting through another civil rights training with me, and I'll turn the time back over to Val.
Thank you, Kelly. I just wanted to also give everyone a reminder that if you or a member of your staff missed the beginning of the broadcast due to technical issues getting in, the Wyoming DFS Assistance Division YouTube page and watch the entire broadcast right from the beginning, because this is a live recording. So if you are not sure how to get to that recording, give me a call, let me know, and I will get that link to you so we can make sure that everyone is able to see this in entirety. All right. So I'm going to turn it over now to Andy Barker, and she will be talking about caseload management.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to attempt to, share my screen. We all know I'm amazing at that, so give me a second. How did I do? I'm looking at Val. I'm waiting for Val to nod. Did it work? Okay. All right, so we're just going to kind of tack on to some of the stuff that we discussed in June. I know not everybody was here for that. But basically, we were just kind of troubleshooting, common distractions throughout our day, and time management and caseload management, because you guys all know that I'm a huge proponent of making sure that the work is organized and that you guys have the time to do what you need to do, because I think that this causes errors when we're not getting that time and really having that routine down. So this first screen, really, I'm just showing you kind of the reports that are available to you in Rave. I didn't want to go too detailed into what the reports look like and how to use them. We've done trainings on those before, but I know we have some new employees. And so if we need to kind of do something a little separate with you guys so you can take a look at what those are. I mean, people in your offices can also do that with you because they should be using them, but this kind of encumbers everything we use for Snap Power and childcare. So these are the things that are available to you that really every single one of them are going to help you in your management. So really, because I come from Snap and Power, I want to apologize to the childcare folks because that's kind of where I'm coming at this from, because I have never done childcare. However, I do think a lot of the stuff I cover is really, really going to be beneficial to everyone because it really, at the end of the day, is just case management. I just kind of gear it more towards the Snap and Power applications just because that's, you know, what I'm used to. So in the morning, at the start of every week, these are things that, let me kind of back up a little bit. These are also things that I found as a caseworker to be beneficial to me. And so they're not going to be everything, you have to do everything I say and that this is an expectation, this is like mandatory for you. These are just things that I found really worked well for me. And then when I became a supervisor, I found they also really worked well for the staff. And so I just want to make sure I'm sharing that stuff with you because it's tools that you can use. So every Monday morning, the beginning of your week, I think it's super beneficial to just take some time to kind of look at your week, look at where things are at right now. It's a good practice every Monday morning to go over your caseload report and your PAL alerts if you're a person who uses those. I know not everyone does. And then also to kind of schedule some time to look at some things that you know you need to do monthly, such as the new hire and the ABOD. So on a caseload report, I think there's a couple different things, a couple different ways that you can use this. Here's what I used it for. I like to look at if my cases were unauthorized. This was huge, especially when we're running COLA or we have a mass change where we think that we've gone through and we've done what we needed to do on our cases and we get a call from a client and they're like, hey, we didn't get our benefits. Well, this is a great tool to use to make sure that the cases you've touched are actually authorized, that they're rolled into the current month. It's a good way to look at what you're working on, what cases are still in receive status, what you're kind of looking at for the week. Also, some people use this too at the end of every month. They kind of look at, oh, who on my caseload is due to recertify next month and kind of get those files out and be looking at them and be almost ready for them if you have time to do that. Another huge thing, make sure that the cases that are in your caseload are actually yours. You know, we do case sharing a lot, but, you know, within our offices and within other offices, you know, across the way to kind of help pick up some work or cover for people. If you've done a case and you haven't sent it back to the original caseworker, it's not on their radar. And so a lot of stuff can get missed if it's not in their name and they're not maybe checking for something that they need to be. Interviews, we talked about this a lot in June as well. Making sure that your interview slots are really set up to get the work done in that time, not just the interview. This really goes into your blue light time. I mean, if you set aside appointment time, why not just focus that time on that one appointment, on that case, even if it's a no-me. I mean, there's plenty of work that can be done with a no-me. But we want to make sure that you're getting your interfaces done, you're getting your narratives started, you're reviewing the case file. And then afterwards, once the interview is over, you know, getting that narrative completed to the point that it can be, making sure that the notices are sent, that the time you spent or that you've at least allotted on your calendar should be spent on that case. And these are some of my best practices. And I think I might get some snickers from some of you, but I can't hear any of you, so that's totally okay. You know, our policy always says you need to act on something within 10 days. And that's great. Stay within that. But I like to go a little bit further and say, you need to be acting on things within the week that it's reported or received. I think that is just the best way to keep up on your casework. So if you get a change reported to you on a Monday, I expected my staff and also myself to have done something with that by Friday, within that week. It just helped me stay on top of things better rather than kind of relying on that I have 10 days to do something with this. So I would say my best advice is to be acting on things within the week that they are either received or due. So that goes for denials too. You know, if your pen drawer is full of things that you're waiting for verification on and you haven't gotten them, you know, look at them, you know, a day or two after it's due. If it's not there, then get it done. There's no reason to be kind of waiting until, like, we never want to be waiting till the 30th day, because that opens us up so much into timeliness errors and things like that. Another best practice I have is process cases in the order that verifications are received, not in the order that the application was received. So for example, let's say we had a recert and they turn in their application on the 2nd of the month, but they didn't turn in any of their verifications. And then we have another application, let's say we received them on the 10th, and the person on the 10th turned in their verifications before the person who applied on the 2nd. I would work that application because they turn in their verifications to me before, versus to me, it doesn't really matter who applied before. If I have the information to work the case, I think that that's the most fair thing to do. Verifications in your inbox, your email, your fax. We want you to be looking at those right away. Things get misfiled, things get sent to the wrong person all the time. So we've got people kind of waiting on, we have caseworkers, you know, waiting on things to arrive to them, not knowing that maybe another benefit specialist has their stuff and they take action on a case, and the client's really upset because they know they turned it in and they probably did. So we want you to be, when you're picking those up, I'm not saying, you know, acting on them right away, but pick them up and make sure that they're yours. Go through them quickly, make sure that they're yours. And if they're not, get them to who they need to go to. Again, the changes, which I kind of already covered, the changes, I like to act on them within the week that it's reported or verified. I don't like to wait the 10 days and just kind of make that goal for myself to have it done by the end of the week. Another huge thing I can't stress enough when you're working changes is please get the case file out. Never just, oh, I got an employment verification. I'm going to go ahead and send, you know, a pen notice saying that we need income or whatever. We have had cases where that employment has already been reported and verified, but we didn't get the case file out. We didn't review it. So I can't stress that enough. You should never be acting on a case without the case file in front of you. And always, always, please complete a change narrative. Even if it doesn't cause an actual change in benefits, then we have that paper trail of, we got this, we looked at this, nothing changed, but, you know, we did give it the attention that it needed. And you never know, we might need that information down the line. I'm huge on organization. Anyone who knows me knows I'm a little crazy about it. Your pen drawer is huge. I would advise you to use your pen drawer on a daily basis. When I was working cases, that's basically, I kind of stacked my appointments in the morning so I could get those interviews done. And then in the afternoon, I did casework. And if my due date was yesterday, I was pulling out those cases today to look at them to see where I was at. I didn't use a 2B work drawer, but I know a lot of you do. That's great. But sometimes when we pull them out of our pen drawer or put them in the 2B work drawer, you know, make sure that we're still getting to those, that it's not really just piling up in there. Huge. Please do not save your filing for later. Please, please, please don't do this. It is so often that we have people who get out sick or have to be on vacation or something, and we pick up case files that are not complete. So it's really hard to deal with when someone is out and we can't find all the information that we need. And then we look and we're like, oh, look at this massive to be filed stuff. It kind of goes hand in hand with, if you're working on a case, you should have the case file out in front of you. And that means you should be filing things right away when you're doing things. Please don't save it. I can't say that enough. Again, like, don't stack your loose paperwork and don't stack files. They should be, I mean, you all have filing cabinets in your office, I assume. How much more effort is it to put it in the filing cabinet than it is to put it on top of the filing cabinet? And then utilize your Google Calendar. I think that for a lot of people, we all have the best intentions every morning when we get to work of the things we're going to get done. I can say from personal experience, it makes a huge difference to me if I actually put on my calendar at this time, I'm going to work on this, because it almost just forces me to do so. And then I don't have to worry about those distractions and things like that we're all very used to dealing with. It's the same as I have an interview. It's like, okay, I'm going to process this case at this time, and it kind of works the same way. I don't know if it's a mental little trick that we do to ourselves, but it works. Phone calls and emails. We talked about this in June as this being a huge distraction. My email is a massive distraction for me. It stresses me out because I'm getting something constantly. So what I've had to learn to do, and it kind of drives me, it kind of hurts me that I have to do it, but I just minimize my email so that I can work on something, because if I don't, my attention is directed too often. So phone and email, I mean, you guys control your schedules. You guys control when you work, when you want that uninterrupted time. And I advise you to really use it. I know it's very easy to say, well, you know, I got a client call me 7 times, or, you know, I got an email from 4 different people. Yeah. And you know what? That stuff's always going to be there. Give that time and attention to that case at that time that you have devoted to it. Preparing for leave. I'm kind of hearing that this is something we're needing to kind of remember, or maybe we weren't ever taught to do. If you're going to be out, you should have some sort of plan with your supervisor, or if you have a buddy of who's backing you up when you are out. So it's not really enough to just say, oh, that's my backup when I'm gone. Your backup needs to know what's going on. So I would advise you to really spend time reviewing your caseload before you go, so that you can go over those things with your supervisor, with your backup. Your supervisor and your backup need to know where things are in your office. They need to know how it is set up. They need to know your pen drawer. They need to know if you have a to-be work drawer. They need to know where your inbox is. They need to know how you organize those things for yourself so that they can get to it when they need it. If you have cases that you know need special attention during the time that they're going to be out, you know, let them know. This is how many cases I have pended. Let them know where they are. I mean, you can even go as far as letting them know, here's what I'm waiting on. I mean, they should be able to pick up that file and figure that out, but it doesn't hurt. Because otherwise it almost feels like you're kind of flying blind. And then any other special instructions, you know, if you have any sort of special agreements with your clients, you know, if you've talked to somebody right before you left and they're like, hey, I need a couple extra days or something. I mean, I, of course, advise you to put that in your narrative, but if you have anything like that, I would encourage you to go over that with them. Please remember that if you're going to be out, to put an extended absence on your phone, put in, you know, the vacation responder in an email, so that if clients are trying to contact you, they know that you're out, and give them a way that they can get in contact with someone. So some other tips and tricks. These are just some good things to use if you think that you're struggling or you could improve. I loved this one, and this one came from Val. Start with a quick win. There are lots of things that we can do first thing in the morning that are little tasks. I don't know. I find a whole lot of pleasure in crossing off something on my to-do list. I mean, sometimes I'll just do something and I'll write it down and cross it off, just because I like that satisfaction of completing something. Puts me in a good mood for the day. So yeah, this one was from Val. It was good. So start with a quick win. Just do a few things in the morning that are going to start your day off right. Gives you a good attitude through the day, and you know, you accomplish a few things that need to get done. Using lists, I just said, huge to-do list fan. That's me. You know, however you want to do this, we have a lot of tools. We have, you know, we have like the sticky note things on our desktop. We have Google Tasks. If you're a person like me and you just want to actually write it down, this helps me kind of make goals for my day and for my week, really. And then if you don't finish something, then you can move it on to the next day. But if I don't write it down, I will most likely forget about it, because I'm really as busy as you guys. And a lot of stuff falls through the crack if I don't get it on a to-do list. Prioritize, you know, look at your casework. Is there stuff that's going to be due, you know, tomorrow? Move that stuff up. You know, power cases, change reports. You know, I like for those things to be filed, you know, as they're received kind of thing. But move those things to the top of your list if they've been sitting there for a little bit. The one-on-one is great. You know, listing out what you're kind of waiting for. I had, you know, lots of my staff used to write on a sticky note everything they asked for and the due date, and they put it on the outside of the file so they could quick glance look at it. But I really liked having using the one-on-one or using the narrative to be able to check off what I'm waiting for on a case. And then, you know, if you have that extra time and you know you're just missing one thing, chances are the client thinks they've turned in everything. So it doesn't hurt to just call them and say, hey, I'm missing this one thing. Because we don't really want to deny a case if they're under the impression in their head that, hey, they got it in. You know, they're busy. What we ask of them is really a lot when we're asking to turn things in. And so it doesn't hurt to just give that little extra reminder for them, and, you know, great customer service. Sticky notes we kind of talked about. They're good for interruptions. You know, when you get interrupted, if you can put a sticky, I am here, that's great. Like I said, leaving notes on case files when you're waiting on something. And I love the sticky note thing on your desktop. I absolutely love it. So if you guys don't know what that is, ask somebody in your office. I'm sure they have it, but it's really cool. I like it. And finally, this is my last slide, and I really cannot stress this enough. If you are struggling keeping up on your work, if you feel like things are piling up, please don't hide it. Ask somebody for help. Your supervisors are here to help you, and your coworkers are here to help you. Everybody has a good little vice that they use to help them get through the day. And it's just something you haven't thought of. And as long as you're sharing with each other the things that work best for you, it's going to be better for us. You never want to be in a situation where you're so overwhelmed that you're not talking to us, and then it's like we find out, you know, that you've got these things piling up. It's not good for you. It's not good for DFS. It's not good for the client. So don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay. This is a really tough job. There's a lot of work coming in all the time, and we don't expect you to be perfect little robots. Everybody has something that they struggle with, but everybody also does something really, really well. All you have to do is pair people up and, you know, use each other. And the last thing is that, you know, checklists are big. We do have some DFS forms that you can use, but I find that checklists work better if you develop them yourself or with you and your supervisor to meet what your needs are, because everybody struggles with something differently. But daily checklists, weekly checklists, monthly routine, if that's something that you need to remember that you're doing that, you can even put that on your Google Calendar. On this day each month, I need to do this. That's great. So that's all I have for you guys today. Like I said, this is kind of my baby. I really think that this is huge as far as the mistakes that we make. I think that it's just that we're not giving ourselves enough time to pay attention to what we need. We're too busy kind of just winging it or playing it by ear, because we're, like I said, it's constant intake for us and it's a lot. So if you need help, like I said, talk to your supervisor, talk to a coworker, let Jackie or Kelly know. Whatever you need to do, we're all here for you to make sure that you can be successful at this and feel good about what you're doing every day, because you really should. Anybody have any questions for me? I'm going to quit yapping now.
I haven't seen any come in. All right, thank you, Andy. Well, I just wanted to say one thing that I love about the worker tip, to call the client when there's only one item missing and everything else has been turned in, is that it can really save you as the worker a lot of time. When you consider, you know, denying the case, Most likely, once that denial notice is received, that item will be turned in. Then you're reopening the case, processing, and narrating all over again. That can be really time consuming. And so just making that 5-minute phone call is not only great customer service, but can really be a huge benefit to you and the time that you're spending on that one case. So I think that is a fantastic tip. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Harding. She is the Child Care Subsidy Program Trainer and Quality Assurance. Over, Teresa.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Let's see if I can figure out how to share this. Oh, here we go. Quick overview of the Child Care Subsidy Program. A lot of you are new and didn't use or didn't ever process child care. It's been a few years ago that we split out from the EA, so this is just a real basic presentation. Val's having to teach me how to use her computer because apparently I can't do it. Sorry. Okay, so the Child Care Subsidy Program helps low-income families and caretakers pay for the cost of childcare for children under the age of 13 years old or special needs children under the age of 18 years old. Eligible households are certified for up to 12 months. Who may be eligible to receive assistance? We have parents, which would be single parents, two-parent households, teen parents, or caretakers, which could be grandparents, foster parents, or other relative caretakers. In order for program applicants to qualify for child care subsidy, the program applicants must be involved in an approved activity outside of the home. The things are including employment, self-employment, employment-related training, high school, GED classes, vocational training, post-secondary educational programs not beyond the first bachelor's degree, or a power recipient with an individual responsibility plan. Other eligibility factors that come into play is that the parent or caretaker must be within the income guidelines. In a two-parent home, both parents must be in an activity at the same time. And foster parents' income, while it doesn't count, they do have to look at their activity in order to verify that they have activity that would qualify them for childcare. And the recipient must select a childcare provider that accepts childcare subsidies. Our income guidelines are updated every April, and you'll see on this chart that there is a transitional childcare from step 5 to 6. So initially, the household needs to apply and qualify within steps 1 to 4 in order to qualify for childcare. After they've been approved, if there's a change in their household circumstances, their income goes up into the step 5 or 6, then they would remain eligible if they would be in the transitional childcare income guidelines. We also do have an additional, I didn't put it on this guideline, but we do have an additional change that happened about a year ago where we can qualify clients in their certification period if their income changes and they go above a step 6, but they're within 85% of the median income, they would continue to be eligible until their recertification. And that is something, if you have a question about, you can certainly check with us. It's not something we have published publicly. It's kind of a worker review as we come across those, and that's kind of not really anything that generally people would want to know about. The other thing that has changed that we have is we have job search. Temporary job search is available for up to 90 days during a 12-month certification period if the parent or caretaker was initially in an approved activity. So if they're working, going to school, something changes, they lose their job, we can approve them for up to 90 days of job search, and that's for 20 hours a week. So if you have any clients that you may meet that may meet the above requirements, please encourage them to fill out a childcare application and turn it into their local field office. The local field office will schedule a childcare interview with the appropriate childcare worker, and benefits will be processed within 30 days. We have 11 caseworkers around the state, any DFS office would be able to take an application and we'll make appointments for the appropriate worker as necessary. And then the last thing I have here are just some contact information. We have our Child Care Program Manager is Eve Barella. She's located in Cheyenne. Then myself, the Child Care Quality Assurance and Training, I'm here in Lander. We have Kim Fry, who is the Child Care Supervisor, and she is in Casper. Cindy Tillman is our other Child Care Supervisor located in Wheatland. And then we have Kelly Merritt as our Regional Manager. Okay, if you have any questions, you can send those to Val or you can contact any of the folks here on this list. Thank you.
All right. Joining us again. We're going to go ahead and get you out of here a little early, which is always fantastic. Give you a little more time in your day. I also want to just remind you one more time that if anybody missed the beginning of this video conference, reach out to me and I will get the link to the YouTube recording out to you. That way everyone is able to view this in entirety. Otherwise, have a fantastic afternoon and we will talk to you later. Thanks.